And hopefully, we'll get going here. Okay, so let me switch over. All right, so this week we're going to continue our adventure inside of After Effects and talk about a couple very important concepts. One is called nesting, and we're going to spend a lot of time looking at the way to take these really conceptual, weird pieces of compositions and combine them into one another. Okay, so today's conversation is going to revolve around nesting. We're also going to talk a lot about the masking system inside of After Effects. After Effects, the book does a really bad job of establishing what masking is all about. And I'm a big believer that if you are to understand one or two things coming out of this class, it's the importance of track mats and masking, okay? Because most motion graphic works in some capacity in one way or another is going to include track mats. And, you know, kind of the track mats are kind of like the key to the kingdom, in my opinion, for motion graphics work. So we're going to spend some time today kind of diverging a little from the text and talk about track mats and really jump in with a big splash. Before we get started talking about the lovely things in After Effects, let's just travel over to our class blog, see what we're going to be doing this week. We're going to be striving to complete the multimedia presentation inside of our homework or inside of our book this week. It's just a very simple animation. Well, actually, it's not a very simple animation. It's a simple machine, if you will. Okay, there's going to be some moving parts in this week's homework assignment that's going to increase the complexity of how we craft our animation through the lens of nesting. You're going to be working with a lot of different assets. Nesting and the idea of pre-composing allows us to very quickly organize our entire composition and isolate certain elements into very, very specific parts and pieces. Okay, so very, very cool. There's some CC stuff in here that you're not going to see in CS6 or in CS5. When we get to that, I'll definitely highlight the differences. It's actually kind of a neat change and a neat difference, so I'll make sure I underline that when we get to that point. So this week, multimedia presentation. It's going to put our skills with comping or pre-comping to test. Our lab, this is where we're going to really get our hands dirty with track mats, and it's going to be a really, really simple lab assignment this week. Once we start looking at the moving parts and pieces of track mats, I think you'll understand quite readily what we're after. Okay, so track mats, and it'll be a fun little assignment for you guys. Now, I've given you all the resources that you need for both the homework and the lab in the resources tab. Dun, da, 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 there it is. Homework, lab should be pretty straightforward. Here's what the lab looks like, by the way. Very, very simple animation. Okay, very, very simple as we jump out into the world of track matting. You know, for our first time here. None of the, what specifically, what was it loading? Resource videos. Any of the assets that you're using for your homework. Yeah. Okay, and I remember seeing that email come across my desk this morning, and unfortunately, when it comes down to something like this, it's entirely dependent on the computer. Did you try changing machines? Try changing machines. Video is entirely, or the success of video playing and playing correctly on your computer is tied specifically to which codecs and which video formats are currently installed on that machine. Now, if you have After Effects installed on that machine, you should at the very least have the QuickTime architecture installed. The fact that it's not loading QuickTimes or even recognizing them is an immediate red flag to me that maybe the installation of that architecture has gone awry somehow. Are you on Mac or PC? PC. Try re-downloading QuickTime. There may be a new version of QuickTime. Okay, that 2 days ago. Okay. What version of After Effects? CC? Okay, that's interesting to me. That's interesting to me. And definitely try it on a different machine. You'll get a different, I guarantee, a different response on a different machine. So yeah. Okay. All right. Other questions, comments before we get started? I know that's probably not the answer you're looking for, Dylan, but unfortunately it is very much tied to the machine that you're constructing these animations on. Okay. All right. This week, we're going to start our conversation talking about masks. Okay. I mentioned earlier that the keys to the kingdom inside of After Effects is this whole idea of track mats and masking. Before we really can jump into the wonderful world of masking in After Effects, it's important that we understand the larger architecture at play here. Our industry has standardized around very few things, but luckily for us, the masking idea, the masking architecture is something that all video and image editing applications have at its core. I've jumped over here to Photoshop because Photoshop brings this entire architecture and system to the surface. In After Effects, they push it as far away from the surface, and it's very, very difficult to visualize precisely what the masking and transparency system is doing. So it's very easy to see here, very difficult to see over in After Effects, but they're playing literally on the exact same field. Okay, it's the exact same series of rules. So let's just talk about it. If you look very carefully at my scene here in Photoshop, I have just a kind of a simple document with two different layers. We've got this little cool computer chip layer here on top, and then right below it's a lovely picture of San Francisco. Okay, the Golden Gate Bridge, lovely. Okay, I want to create a mask. Okay, I want to create a mask on our top layer here and punch a hole into that top layer so I can see through to the layer underneath. It's the cool thing about working with inside of a layers-based editing, image editing program or a layers-based video editing program is that we get to work on these different panes of glass. When we punch a hole in something, are we deleting the pixels? Well, hopefully we don't want to delete those pixels. We just want to turn their transparency off, right? We want to make them invisible. That's what a mask is doing. It's going through and it's turning the associated pixels invisible. In my mind, we're kind of flipping a switch. You either see them or we don't see them. They're visible or they're invisible. They're transparent or they're opaque. In Photoshop, the process of, this process is called creating a layer mask. In After Effects, it's called track matting, but it's using the exact same principles at its core. They're identical, okay? Identical. Layer masks and track mats work almost identically. Now, I want to make a layer mask for layer 1 here by hitting this button down here. And you can do this with any image, so if you're playing along, definitely make a very simple comp. You can do this with anything. But that little button right there, at the bottom of our layers palette, is going to allow us to apply a track mat to our little computer chip layer. Now, a lot of people, they get confused. They hit that little button, and they see this big white thumbnail, and nothing changed on their computer chip, right? And then they get a little concerned. They're like, Pat, nothing's happened. But in actuality, the engine of our track mat and our transparency mask is at play here. It's actually working the way it's designed to work. You can see immediately that once we add that layer mask on our computer chip layer, that a new image has been connected to our computer chip. Okay? This is an image. Okay? This is not something that exists in the ether of Photoshop. It's physically creating an image that matches this Photoshop document's frame size, frame width, all that jazz, okay? Pixel aspect ratio, but it's creating it in the back end, okay? Now in Photoshop and in After Effects, the masking and transparency system involves this secondary image, and specifically involves the colors associated with that secondary image. Now, if I zoom out, okay, my track mat is working, my layer mask is working fundamentally, but has anything changed? Has anything changed in my computer chip? Not a thing, right? All the pixels that are associated with that layer are still visible. So what can we say about the rules of track matting? White pixels equal on. I love it. White pixels equals on, right? White pixels on our layer mask equals visible, okay? White is on. Okay, good. I'm glad you stopped me. Let's double check. There is a little bit of a lag, but it's worth pausing and checking to see if it's actually doing it. And it does not appear to be doing it. Awesome. Is it Photoshop that's messing this up? Great. It was going for a second until I opened Photoshop, and now it's no longer working. Yeah. Okay. I know, right, man? It's just, it drives me absolutely batty. It's like it's choosing. It's like, oh, I want to see if I can really monumentally screw this up for Pat tonight. Let's see how we do, you know? Gosh. Huh? Are you live now? I'm live now. I should be live now. Let me just give it a minute. Please stand by. I had to stop the stream. Yeah, I had to stop the stream, but we're going now. I'm streaming. Everything's good, hopefully. You're seeing video? Wait for it. Wait for it. The nervous anticipation of this entire thing working. Ah, I hear myself. All right. I apologize for the technical delays. You see the machine that I'm working with is not exactly helping me out in any sense. Okay. So I think we've kind of beaten this idea to death now, that what we are working with are images whose black and white grayscale value is determining the overall transparency of the layer that it's connected to. Okay? That's the big picture idea. In Photoshop, we can very easily see this machine at play over there in our layers palette. And I love this about Photoshop because we get to see the layer mask, right? There it is. There's the layer mask. We get a lovely thumbnail. Shoot, even if I what is it? I think you hold down Shift, I think, and click on the layer. Nope, not Shift. Was it Control? Nope, I'll get it. It's one of these. There we go. It's Option. If you hold down the Option key and click on the layer mask, it actually brings that image full screen, making it very, very easy to understand the role and the application of these layer masks into our composition. Yeah, if you hold down the Option key and then click on it, it shows you full screen, you know, what that image looks like. If you hold down the Shift key, it disables your layer mask. It doesn't delete it, it just disables it, and you get this lovely big X through the thumbnail. So it's very, very easy to see how the Photoshop system is leveraging this entire architecture through the layers palette. Because you see the image, you see the colors, and it's great. We don't get that luxury over in After Effects. The exact same machine is in play. And actually, to be honest with you, this is an industry standard idea. You go into any image editing application, you're working on black and white images that are in turn affecting the transparency of the associated layer. If you go into Premiere, same thing. If you go into Final Cut Pro, same thing. Shake, Nuke, you know, all of the big compositing apps work on the exact same idea of a black and white image affecting the transparency of the layer that they are connected to. Let's take a look at how all this works together over in After Effects, because it's pretty neat. All right, here we go. Okay, so over in After Effects, I brought in the exact same assets, and I want to start off just by creating a new composition that's, let's just make it 1280 by 720. There we go. And let's just take that circuit board, throw it down in there. Va-va, there it is. Lovely, and I want to make it a little bit bigger. Something like that. Wonderful. And let me grab the Golden Gate Bridge, and I'll put it down there. And you can see that it's just chilling in the background. And just to ensure that everything is lined up, I'll just make it a little bit bigger. There we go. All right. So now we have kind of in every sense rebuilt the exact same example that we were working with over in Photoshop. So let's see how this system can be influenced here, and how this track mat idea can be applied here inside of After Effects. It's a little bit different. Now, I mentioned a minute ago that in Photoshop, what it's doing when you hit that layer mask button is it's creating a new image on the back end of Photoshop. And we get an icon to see what that image looks like, right? Well, we here in After Effects have to create that image for us, okay? We have to use our shape creation tools to generate all that information on the front end. So we have to define what that looks like. Okay, it's really easy to do this. Let's make a shape layer here, and I'll use a circle. And I'm just going to drag out a circle. There it is. Now we're going to be leveraging the embedded alpha information of a shape layer. One of the things we talked a lot about last week is that shape layers have transparency information associated with it, right? Which allows us to stack these shape layers on top of each other. They have embedded alpha. Let me show and prove that to you here in After Effects. One of the great things in After Effects is that we can very quickly go to another layer, except shape layers, and let's make this shape layer a color that's not white. So let's make it red. I've disabled all the other layers inside of my composition, and check it out. Down at the bottom of our composition viewer, we have this little guy right here. It's going to show us all the respective color channels that are associated with our comp, so we can start isolating all our channels. But check it out. We have an option down here for alpha channel. This is the transparency channel. This is that exact same black and white image that's responsible for generating the pixel transparency of the layer that it's connected towards. So we get to see it if we click on this guy right here, alpha, bam. And now our circle is no longer red, it's white. We're seeing the transparency information that's associated with this layer. Okay, and just this layer. We're going to leverage that. We're going to tap in to the alpha information that's connected to our shape layer. Okay. Yeah, so I deactivated the visibility of layers 2 and 3. And inside the composition viewer, down in the bottom row of options, right down here, this little button is defaults to RGB, which will allow you to see the RGB values of all the visible layers. And I just changed mine to alpha. From time to time, I almost always just jump into that just to see if there's any embedded alpha information associated with the layer that I currently have working here in After Effects. And there is with shape layers. All shape layers that are generated inside of After Effects will have embedded alpha information. I want to access that. I want to leverage that alpha information of my little red sphere here and use it to punch a hole inside of my circuit board, just like we did over in Photoshop. But we're kind of having to do it the manual way, you know. Nothing in After Effects comes for free. They definitely make us jump through a lot of hoops to do something that's relatively simple in other applications. All right, so let's just do it real fast. Whenever I'm working, I always try to think of the goal first. I always try to envision in my mind what I'm trying to achieve. And 9 times out of 10, that leads me down a path that allows me to construct that goal here in After Effects. Our goal is to take this circuit board image and punch a hole in it so that we can see through that hole to the Golden Gate Bridge photograph that's residing underneath it. Okay? So in every sense, kind of what we're doing here. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, you probably can, absolutely. You know, it's just a black and white image. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. There's a lot of steps involved in that, but yes, theoretically you can, absolutely. Because it's just an image. It's just an image. Say again? At times it could be. It kind of depends on what you're masking. It really depends on what you're masking, okay? Like over the weekend I was working with my older brother. He had a picture of a lamb that he wanted, you know, to be masked out, and his wife drew this really cool picture of a lamb, and he wanted the background to be removed. So I spent some time in Photoshop making a mask. Because of the custom nature of that mask, and because I had to do a lot of hand painting on it, that's something that I'll definitely want to export from Photoshop and not have to recreate here in After Effects. So it just kind of depends on what you're trying to achieve. Okay, so back to our example. What we're trying to do, punch a hole in our circuit board just like we did over in Photoshop. Now, in essence, if you kind of think about this, what we're doing is not too dissimilar to making cookies, right? It's dinner time. I'm a little bit hungry, so I like me some cookies. Okay. FYI, I love cookies. So if you bring cookies, well, no, I'm above bribery. So never mind. Don't bring cookies. Bring cookies though. It'll be brownies. Ooh, now we're talking. Now we're talking. I loved all baked goods. I really do. I don't discriminate. It's great. Huh? No. Yeah, I know. I'm just joking. I'm totally joking, by the way. Okay. So what we're doing here is kind of not too dissimilar from a cookie cutter. Okay. Imagine the circuit board like a big flat piece of cookie dough, and we want to punch a hole in it, and we want to punch a circle-shaped hole in our piece of cookie dough, right? Because I don't know about you guys, I make a lot of cookies because, well, I love cookies. And my wife has a whole series of really awesome cookie cutters, and we get the stars and elephants and giraffes and stuff. And I love making cookies because, you know, you put the cookie cutter down on the dough, and now you have a star-shaped opening inside the cookie dough, right? We're doing the exact same thing. Circuit board's the cookie dough. Our circle is the cookie cutter. Now in After Effects, we have to honor a very, very specific layer order for this entire dance to work. Okay, This is one of those hard and fast rules that we cannot ignore. The cookie, okay, is a circuit board. Well, the cookie cutter has to be one layer immediately above it, okay? If you look at the way the system is constructed at the moment, I have that exact same idea already plugged in down here. Here's the cookie, and immediately one layer north of it is my cookie cutter, the circle, okay? And it has to be one layer up. Can't be down, can't be two, it's got to go one up. Once we have that relationship in play, let me just turn on my shape layer so we can see the machinery at work. There it is in its current form. Once we have this relationship established, we can go over to the track mat column. It's this guy right here, track mat. And you can see that the topmost layer doesn't have an option associated with it. That's because there's nothing to look up to, right? It's the topmost layer in our hierarchy, so there's no alpha information for it to grab. When we go to the track mat column for our circuit board, our cookie, check it out. You click on it, and you're going to get 4 options. The common denominator between all 4 of those options is the layer that's immediately above it. In our case, the one that's named shaped layer 1, the circle. And we have 4 different options. We have alpha mat, inverted alpha mat, and then luma inverted mat. We'll talk about the luma stuff here in a minute, but we're going to focus on alpha, okay? Which is just a fancy word for transparency. That's all it means, is transparency. So what we're doing here, in essence, is that we're accessing the alpha information of the layer that's immediately above my circuit board, the circle. Let's check it out. I'm going to choose alpha mat, shape layer 1. Let's see what we get. Bam! Okay, mission kind of accomplished. Or is it? Not exactly the result that we were looking for, right? We wanted a hole, and what do we have? A circle. A circle in the shape, a cookie. It's a circuit board cookie. There it is. That's what we have. That's what we have. Not exactly the result that I want. We're still accessing the alpha information of shape layer 1, rock and roll, okay? But it's the opposite of what we were desiring. So from that pull-down menu, which one should I have chosen? Inverted. You got it. So I'll go back to the same track mat column, alpha inverted mat, and boom, there it is. Now we have the exact same system that we had before. Mission accomplished. Okay. Now, the cool thing about this in After Effects is that it's still live. That track mat, or excuse me, that shape layer that's acting as the track mat for layer number 2 is still alive and kicking. We still can edit it. We can still move it around. We can apply effects to it. It's still a player inside of our composition and in our animation. Case in point, let me show you what I'm talking about. I can grab my shape layer. I got my direct selection tool active here, so I can still move it around. Okay. I can still, scale it. I mean, everything that I'm used to being able to do to that shape layer is still available to us. Okay. So I was gonna rotate it, but I was rotating a sphere. That's not going to work. That's pretty cool, right? We use vector shapes as a transparency mask, as a dissolve, perhaps. Just really cool. Gives us a lot of creative options here in the animation world to create something that's compelling. We're accessing the alpha information of one layer, and we're applying it to another layer. That's what track matting is all about. If you look at what people are doing out there in the motion graphics world, almost everything, to a certain degree, is a track mat, because we get the accuracy that we desire on the masking side and the flexibility on the animation side to create some really cool effects and create some really cool results. Okay, still non-destructive, rock and roll. Okay, still non-destructive. So anything that we do to my shape layer, my circle, is going to be completely adopted by our cookie. Okay. Now, one kind of thing, and this is something that I really wish After Effects would change. The only indication that a track mat is active are the 2 new icons that show up to the immediate left of the text. So you get a cool little black circle on circuit board, and you get a white circle on shape layer 1. That's it. That's the only visual indicator that a machine has, the transparency machine is on. In Photoshop, you got those lovely thumbnails, and it was very easy to digest exactly what was going on. In After Effects, they assume you guys are professionals, and they assume you guys know what you're doing, and they're not going to give you much help on it. Okay? The other thing that gets people hooked up all the time is that when you're working with track mats, notice that the visibility of shape layer 1 has been deactivated. We don't want to delete it, obviously, because then our track mat would go away, but the visibility needs to be off. If I turned it back on, then we'd see the red circle. So if I turn it back on, boom, now it's a red circle. So it needs to be off. The visibility of the element whose alpha information we're kind of accessing needs to be off. Okay? People step on that landmine all the time. They're like, it's not working. Well, that's because your track mat's on. Okay? The visibility icon for the track mat is on. Yes, ma'am. So let me just make sure I understand your question correctly. If you take the visibility of which layer of the first one?
Whatever layer.
What you see is what you get. Absolutely. So if I was to render as is, this is what it would look like. Yeah, you got it. Other questions on this so far? Okay, cool. So let's kick this up a notch. Okay. Let's get rid of my circle and start playing around with some really neat things. Okay. When we applied that track mat earlier, there was 4 options in that pulled-on menu: alpha, alpha inverted, and then the bottom 2, Luma. Okay. Going back to what we talked about earlier in Photoshop, what we were ultimately crafting was a black and white image whose grayscale value was affecting the transparency of the layer that it was connected to, right? Grayscale, black and white, okay? Black is off, white is on, rock and roll, okay? Well, what if we had a video file? Throw it into the mix. I have some assets here. Here's one. Oh, that's not right. Awesome, and it looks like this version of, awesome, this is great. Apparently, this version of After Effects does not support photo JPEGs. Boo on it. This is supposed to be black and white, and as you can see, it's coming out green, which is not exactly what it should look like. Boo. Okay. However, let's just see if it still works. I cannot believe that After Effects does not support photo JPEG. Let me see if I can find the actual file on my machine, just so you have a point of reference as to what it looks like. It's just a black and white cloud mat. I may be able to transcode it real fast, just so you guys get a visual. Let's see. There it is, just a black and white. Okay? Yeah, pretty cool, right? Just some really cool cloud effects. Well, I want to leverage this black and white image and use it as a track mat for the other objects within my scene. Since apparently After Effects CC doesn't support photo JPEG, which is like mind-blowing to me, since photo JPEG is like one of the original video formats and codecs in our industry, that's got to be a bug, in my opinion. Let's just see if we can make it work. All right, so we're going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to grab my cloud mat, drag it down in there, and it's still very much green. Awesome. Let's do this. Let's see if we can just hack it. Scale it up some. Let's see if we can just hack it a little bit. What if I just applied some color correction? Let's just do a little hue saturation. And I'll dump down the saturation, so now it's black and white. Yeah. And see how it's changing kind of tonal values in there? That's the compression. That's the photo JPEG compression. Yeah. This is kind of why you don't want to use photo JPEG for anything, because the compression algorithm is not fantastic. But let me find a frame or a section here where the compression isn't giving me a funky result. Right in there. Okay, so the system is still going to work. So let's go into my my circuit board here, and from my track mat list, check it out. I can do Luma mat. Now, when we choose Luma mat, it's looking at the luminosity of the layer above it, because that layer doesn't have an embedded alpha channel like the circle did, right? It's just a video file. No alpha information in there whatsoever. It does, however, have black and white pixels, and we can access that through the Luma mat option in our track mat. So I'm going to use the luminosity of the layer above, the grayscale values, to influence absolutely nothing. Oh, it's on, that's why. There we go. Ta-da! And it works. Yeah, now we have a cloud-shaped mat, which is kind of nice. And of course, it's going to animate and change as we go across the entire animation. Yeah. Pretty cool, huh? Very cool. Yeah, so I just chose Luma Mat. Luma Mat. And of course, there's Luma Inverted Mat, which is going to give you this result. Yeah, I'll have to see what's going on with that photo JPEG thing. That seems to be a bug. That shouldn't be doing what it's doing. Pretty neat, huh? Track matting in After Effects allows us to take two layers, make a relationship between those two layers, and use the transparency information, the alpha channel of one, to influence the alpha channel of another. Or just the black and white pixels. It doesn't even have to be black and white pixels, right? Luminosity is just the measurement of light coming through the lens. The more light that's coming through the lens of a camera, the more luminous it is. Okay. So what if we took the cityscape, put that in there? Okay. Let's make it big so you guys can see it. And let's do a Luma Mat on it. And turn its visibility off. Yeah, check it out. Now we can only see. Now we see the circuit board only only from the headlights of our cars, okay? Because those are the brightest parts of the image. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be a grayscale image. It could be any image. Pretty neat, huh? Pretty cool. I love working with track mats. Track mats are my favorite thing to work with. It opens a lot of doors. It now allows us to make relationships on a transparency level between separate layers inside of my After Effects composition. Because both of these elements are still live, it gives me a lot of creative choices and options on the animation side to make a more engaging and compelling motion. Like for example, if we were to go back in and grab my cityscape, the one thing that we can't animate, unfortunately, is the track mat itself. So we can't animate them going on and off. That's an issue for us, okay? So this is something that's kind of hard-coded into your composition. The track mat's either enabled or it's disabled, and you can't flip the switch based on the application of a keyframe. So it's not an animatable channel. It's one of the few things that you can't animate in After Effects, is that turning on and off. So with it on, though, we still get to control the cityscape. For example, I'm just going to activate visibility so I can see what I'm doing. Let's go and apply that hue saturation effect one more time. I'll dump down the saturation so it's now black and white. And shoot, let's add a levels column here too. Color correction, levels. And I'm just going to make this super contrasty. Something like that. So now I've pushed all the blacks and the concrete and on the buildings really intensely. And really the only thing that I'm being left with are just the kind of the light streaks downstairs. Let's turn this off. Yeah, there we go. And of course, these values in here are animatable. So these are things in here that we can go ahead and animate and have fun with. There's a cool way of kind of turning it on and then off. Really neat. I love working with track mats. So many cool applications of this technology, one of which we're going to get our hands dirty with during our lab with the night vision. Part one of our night vision assignment. The night vision animation that we're going to be building over the next couple of weeks is going to be a two-parter. Just a really kind of simple, application of the tools and the technology. Next week we're going to expand on that by talking about effects and start looking at how we can plug in our audio to a number of other effects to get the result that we want. Make sense? Kind of understand track matting? A little bit? A little bit? Okay, cool. All right. All right, so let's transition over and start talking about how to work with comps and nesting. And I'm going to bring open the completed RoboBody animation that you guys were working on last week. If I still have it with me. I thought I had it with me. Oh, either way, hey, let's just do this. Let's just grab some of these files real fast. And we'll work through it. We'll rebuild RoboBody real fast and get hopping with it. I'm going to grab sportstitles.ai, load it in as retained layer sizes as a comp, and then let's go grab some of those video assets as well. All right, and that should do us. When you're getting into complex animations, you're going to be creating complex layers or a complex timeline downstairs in your layers palette. Oops. I got click happy. All right. Let's just start constructing the framework of RoboTV. All right, here's RoboBody. I missed on my double click. There we go. So the RoboBody comp is really a composition that's constructed up of 4 different sublayers, each layer its own part of the Photoshop document. This you know and understand from last week's exercise and from your lab assignment. But it gives us an opportunity to start talking about how we can work inside of this multi-composition environment to get what we want. Okay. I'm going to take... So I made a new composition here, and it's called Fractal Noise Blocky. There we go. Now, because I took the asset called Fractal Noise, this guy, and dragged it onto the Create New Composition button at the bottom of my bin, it automatically named my comp. That's the Create New Comp button. It automatically named my composition to match the asset. Well, I'm going to change that. Does anyone remember how to change your composition settings? Composition, and then what? Composition settings, yeah. I don't want that. I don't want the fractal noise name. So composition setting, awesome. Let's call this Pat's Silly Animation. There we go. We'll leave the rest of it as is. So we fundamentally have changed the name of our composition. Well, if you look carefully at our bin, we have a couple other compositions that already include assets inside of them. When we import in a Photoshop document, it comes in as a composition. And on the interior of that composition resides those 4 layers that we were working with earlier. Okay? If I double-click on that comp downstairs in our timeline, you can see that it opens that composition in its own timeline window, its own little tab, and we can see the contents of that. Now, this is where it gets kind of cool, because I want to be able to take all of this. I need to use all 4 of those animations, or all 4 of those layers, as a component of Pat's Silly Animation. So what I'm about to do is called nesting, where we can take compositions and put them inside of other compositions. I always think of compositions in my mind kind of like a folder. Okay, it's just a really fancy folder with some parameters associated with it, like a duration and a frame width and a height and a pixel aspect ratio and a frame rate. But in my mind, it's just a folder. That's all it is. And the contents are kind of like files inside of that folders. Right now, I got Pat's Silly Animation that has 1 file in it. This one layer, this guy, the fractal noise, and there it is. Kind of fascinating, right? Well, I want to put the RoboBody folder inside of my bin into that environment. So if I drag and drop, I can put it in my comp, and you can see that the contents of that composition are now included in here. This is called nesting or pre-composing, depending on which part of the book you read. Okay. This is fantastic because now we can group things together logically. We don't have to have a composition that's got 80 million layers in it. We can have one composition with maybe 4 or 5 different compositions that have their own series of layers inside of them. Now, since I've included RoboBody, the composition RoboBody, into Pat's Silly Animation comp, do I still get access to all of RoboBody's layers? Yeah, can I edit them? Yeah, can I rotate them, do everything I want? Yes, absolutely. All right, Tabari? You almost killed yourself there. Jeez. You almost like fell over. That would have been hilarious. You would have pressed charges? Yeah, I would have helped you. All right. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I love it. Anyways, okay. So we still get access to all of the layers inside of the nest compositions. They're not gone. They're not flattened. They're not merged. We've just started to create a hierarchy and a relationship between all these compositions. So if I go over here to RoboBody, any change that I make in RoboBody is immediately going to be, and I'm just going to rotate this. Any change that I make here is immediately going to ripple update into the composition above it, right? Which is pretty great. Excuse me. All right. So it allows us to group things logically together. We don't have to have everything in one composition as we were working last week. Let me show you another cool thing about working inside of compositions. Now I have a whole bunch of these video files. These are the video montage files that you guys were working with last week. Let's just throw them in here. There we go. And let's just do this. I'm going to move them around. I'm going to scale them down together. Something kind of like that. Yeah, it's close enough for government work. Okay. And let's okay. And I'm going to do a very, very quick edit here, and I mean extraordinarily quick. Do you guys remember how to automatically trim files in and out points to the location of the playhead? What was the keyboard shortcut for that? The bracket, also known as the braces key, absolutely. So if you hold down the Alt key or the Option key on your keyboard and hit open or close braces, boom, it's automatically going to trim the out point of that layer to the location of the playhead, rock and roll. Now I've trimmed the out point of layer number 2, which is the dude on the mountain. Say again? N, as in like the letter N? Yeah. Let's give it a try. Now that did something different, okay? The N key, N as in November, it didn't trim the layers in and out point. What did it do? Yeah, it trims what's called the work area. The work area, okay? Now the work area, as a small little reminder, is this gray bar right here. The one with the two big gold pillars on either side. The work area is basically going to define the area that After Effects is going to give you a RAM preview for. So if I hit the space bar, it's only going to preview that little section in there, okay? Think of it like a selection. We've selected these frames to edit and work on, okay? This is dangerous, however. Yeah, that's the danger, yeah. I very rarely change the duration of my work area because when I hit that render button, it's only going to render your work area, the contents of your work area, which is why I don't really change it that often. Yeah, the book makes you do a lot of things. It's not a bad thing to learn. I mean, it's an important part of our workflow, but it's not. There's some danger associated with it. Okay. But trimming a layer is Option braces. So I'm going to do it real fast, and I'm just going to arbitrarily just kind of assign some out points here. I'm really not trying to make anything too stellar. Oops, excuse me. Wanted that one, boom, something like that. And last, but certainly not least, maybe something like that. Okay, so now I have, let's see, what, 5 layers. 5 layers, okay? We start adding in all the text layers, the other things that we need in here. Our layer stack and our timeline is going to grow quite significantly. It would be nice at times to be able to work with these elements as a group, right? What if I wanted to move all 5 of these together? I could select them all, but it certainly would be a whole lot easier just to select one thing and then know that the contents of that composition are going to adopt all of your transformations and all of your effects and all of your masking, okay? This, right now, what I'm doing, it's called pre-composing, where I take existing layers, discrete independent layers, and group them into a new composition. I'm not using an existing composition like I did with RoboBody, right? That was one that was already created. I'm making a new composition from existing layers. It's called pre-composing. Pre-composing. It starts off with a selection. You can see there they got the 5 layers selected, okay? And if you go to the top of the screen where it says Layer, I know it's not exactly in the best position. It should be in the composition pull down, but it's not. It's in Layer. It's down here at the bottom called Pre-compose. Pre-compose. You can also find this, I believe, in the right-click contextual menu down in the timeline. You're going to find that I'm not much of a right-clicker. I go through the top-down menus for everything, but there's a lot of stuff in the right-click menu that does the exact same thing. pre-compose. Now we have some options when we click on this button, okay? And we need to look at some of these options, and there's some new ones in here. There's some new ones. Of course, we're going to name this. We absolutely have to name our pre-compose. If you turn in anything where the name of a composition is pre-comp1, I'm going to send it back to you. That's bad media management, okay? We want to be as specific as we can with our file names to ensure that we don't get confused. And trust me, you don't think you're going to get confused, but you are. You're going to get confused, okay? At the end of the day, when it's the 11th hour, you're turning your assignment in right before the deadline, you're going to get confused as to the role of these items within your scene. Don't be that person, okay? Name your stuff so that when you're rendering or when you're working on this, you're not going to get confused. So with that said, let me be a good practitioner of my own advice. Take my own medicine here. Let's just call this video montage. There we go. We have two options down here that we need to keep our eyeballs on. And one of these options is brand new in CC. And this is a good thing, but it's something to be aware of. Okay, so it says, you can see that the first option is grayed out. It says, leave all attributes in Pat Silly animation. We don't want to leave the currently selected attributes in its original composition. That's kind of defeating the purpose here. We want to move it into a new composition, which is what that second option is. Move all attributes, and when they see attributes, what they're really meaning is layers. Okay? Move all layers into a new composition. Use this option to place the currently selected layers together into a new intermediate composition. Yes, that's what we want to do. We want to create a new subfolder inside of the Pat Silly animation composition that we created earlier. Okay. And then you could open, if you have this on, it will automatically open that composition when you hit OK. I'm going to leave it off just for the time being. We're going to come back to adjust composition duration here in a second. We're going to come back to that one. Let's just see what happens when I hit OK, just so you have a point of reference as to what this machine is doing. We'll hit OK. Boom. Check it out. We've kind of collapsed the entire hierarchy. Okay? All 5 of those video layers have now been grouped into a new composition called video montage. Now, are those layers gone? No, they're not gone. They've been grouped in a composition. If you look carefully over in our bin, check it out. There it is. We've made a new composition in our bin. The computer did this automatically for us. Double-clicking on this item, either in the bin or in the timeline, will open that. Okay, just double-click on video montage. And there it is. There's all of our layers. We still get access to all of them. Rock and roll. Things are good. Things are very good, actually. Okay. And the cool thing about working with pre-comps is that now we've grouped all of those layers into one element. Compositions are first-class citizens inside of After Effects, meaning everything that we can do to a layer, we can do to a composition. Okay. They really are, and through the eyes of the technology, they are identical. So they still get a transform section. We can still mask them. We can apply effects to them. Oops, hit the wrong button, excuse me. So I can change the position of the entirety of the composition. I can change the scale of everything. The anchor points are still playing the same critical role. Everything that we're used to doing with the layer can be done with a composition, okay? Including the ability to apply effects, which is really great. Which is really great, actually, okay? I think I hit undo for a moment, so let me go forward in time. There it is. So that's what it's doing. When we pre-compose, we're taking the selected layers, we're throwing them into a new composition, and then the computer's automatically putting that new composition in our timeline for us. Now, look very carefully at the duration of this timeline, or of this new composition. It spans the total duration of the composition. Interesting. Interesting. Let me hit undo one step and go back to the point in our project here where we hadn't done the grouping yet. Check it out. Layer number 6 here, it ends its duration right here at the playhead. Okay? So in actuality, the total number of visible frames for the selected layers go from 0 to right about just after 4 seconds. They don't actually extend over here to the final frame of the composition. It's interesting. The default pre-compose options will get you what you saw before. They've changed something in After Effects CC that I'm very happy that they've changed. If you go back, we're going to do the exact same thing here. If we go back to the pre-compose option in the layers pull-down menu, I want to show you what that second option does. Adjust composition duration to the time span of the selected layer. I am very happy that they have included this as an option now, because watch what happens. This is not in CS6. This, I think it matters. Can you still do your business? Absolutely. But it's one of those little kind of tweaks to the interface and to the system that really has a big implication for especially folks like me who work with very deep, complex layering systems. Okay, so check it out. It's pretty neat. Adjust composition duration to the span of the selected layer. Let's rename this video montage. Hit OK. Boom. Now, look at the duration of that new composition. It doesn't span the total duration of Pat's silly animation. It's truncated. The out point matches the last visible frame of that layer. I like this. This actually makes it a little bit easier to work with pre-comps and to group things. Yeah?
Is the timing the same on the long one, or is it actually different?
Is the timing the same on the montage, right? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so on this one, I guess is the time that it displays in the timeline is true measurement. So on this one, yeah, I would probably guess so, but if we didn't select what you just selected, what would be the remainder of the video?
Let's find out. Let's find out. Let's go back in time a couple steps. Let's do the exact same thing. If I did the pre-comp without that option on, okay, notice that Pat silly animation is 6 seconds in duration. Okay, and pre-comp 1, that's the video montage that I forgot to name, is now 6 seconds in duration. If I double click on it, it's 6 seconds in duration still. So the time has been remained the same. Yeah.
Well, I just did the pre-comp, and then it's even if I'm not clicking at the adjust parts. Well, basically, it's not it's like it is come as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
Yep, and that's expected. That's the old way of working with it, or it's not the old way. It's the CS6.
No. I didn't check that. I didn't check that.
I know, yeah, and you're getting the result that's expected. Yeah, because the duration of the new comp, which is 10 seconds, matches the duration of Night Vision 1 or test, wherever those files originated from. Check it out. Go back into Night Vision 1. See, look, your duration over here is 10 seconds, right?
Right.
These two layers, they only have a duration, at the moment of right around 8 seconds.
Wait. I'm confused. So what's this for?
Click on it.
Okay.
Okay? Now, check it out. Pre-comp 1, look where it ends. It doesn't end at 10 seconds. It ends at 8 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
Cool. It takes some getting used to. If you're coming from the video editing world, this is going to feel very, very natural because this is what you're used to seeing inside of Premiere Pro and Final Cut Pro and Avid. This is how video editing applications have worked with their nesting and grouping system up until now. Okay. All right. Other questions on how to work with this? Okay. Couple things, and let me just make this. I want to change the name of my composition, and let's just, oops, excuse me, I'm in the wrong one. Let's go to pre-comp 1. I'm going to change the name of this to video montage. There we go. Awesome. Okay, let's go back to Pat silly animation, and I'm going to grab all of my sports titles layers and throw those guys in. I don't want the guides. I'll throw those guys down in here. Okay, rock and roll. There they all are. Awesome. Okay. So how do I take all 4 of those text elements and group them in a custom composition? What's the process? Walk me through it. So how do I pre-comp? Where do we find it? Layer, okay? A lot of folks, they look for it in the composition pull-down menu. It's in the layer pull-down menu because what we're doing is influencing the current parameters of a layer. So layer, pre-compose. And we'll call this, I don't know, text. Ta-da! All right. So if you look at the system that we've created here, we now have 4 compositions in play. We have Pat silly animation, which is the parent, and then it has 3 child compositions: text, robo body, in video montage. However, let's kind of make this even more, more convoluted. I'm going to take the text layer, or the text composition, and just delete it from my scene. Now, it's not gone, because it's still residing inside of my bin. And I want to put that text comp inside of RoboBody. There it is. Ta-da! Wonderful. Okay. So now, we've created a really complex map, if you will, a complex hierarchy of folders. It would be really great to be able to illustrate and visualize how all of these compositions work together. Because the great thing about working in Photoshop and that layers palette, everything is pretty vertical, right? You can very quickly see how all these folders grouped inside of each other are related to one another. We don't necessarily get that inside of Photoshop, or excuse me, in After Effects. However, they have added some interface elements that does make it a little bit easier to see exactly what we're going to be working with here. And if you go up to, what is it? I think it's Window. Yeah. Flowchart. Why is that not working? Let's grab Pat Silly Animation. It should have been Flowchart. Hold on a second. Wait for it, wait for it. You get this really cool, why did they not go? Yeah, why is my flowchart not coming up? FYI, if you haven't learned this about me yet, I am horrible with decoding lists. So if you ever see me like staring at like a huge long list, my brain has a hard time decoding all of that information. So I'm like, you know, so I apologize. Okay, hold on a sec. Let me see what's going on here. Why did this not do what I wanted to do? Something is, oh, here we go. Okay. So I right-clicked on the tab for my composition flowchart. Aha, there it is. That's what I was looking for. And now it's open at the flowchart. If you start double-clicking on things, whoops, there we go. You can see kind of a breakdown as to what all this looks like. You can see the flow of information as it's going in, into our master. Okay. Some people really like working with this. I like working like this. It's a nice visualization of how all of these layers are working together. Yeah, it gets kind of crazy. Yeah, but we can see pretty quickly here which layers are in here. Okay. You can see how they're all connected to one another, and you can even start to filter this, if I remember correctly, to only show compositions and layers. Okay. So here's all the small arm, all of our layers for the robo body stuff. Okay. And all of that information is flowing in to this guy over here. Here we go. That's a little bit easier to see instead of these curved lines. Okay, you can change the way it's viewing all of this down here at the bottom. Okay, let's turn off show layers. There we go. Now it's definitely a whole lot easier to see what's going on. Okay. So this flowcharts, if you're having a hard time kind of conceptualizing what all this looks like, definitely check this out. It can be helpful for a lot of folks as they try to figure out the relationships between all their comps, because now we see, this is called a nodal view of all of our elements within our scene. We can see the flow of information from all of our sports titles. They're all connected to this text layer. This text composition is nested inside of RoboBody, which is nested inside of Pat Silly Animation. We see the flow chart of all these different nodes from all the different players of our animation. Some people, when you get into complex, I mean super complex animations, this is a necessity to understand how each one of these layers is influencing the other. It's pretty great. I like it a lot. And I don't have any effects currently applied to my scene, but you can actually start to visualize all your effects. And it's just really neat. There it is. I just turned show footage off, and now we're just seeing basically the compositions and their associated layers. Okay. Pretty neat, huh? I like it. I like working with nested compositions. They certainly make my life as an animator a little bit more controllable. Now, one final thing about working with nested comps, this is kind of a timeline management thing. A lot of folks, they get really kind of hung up when animating. I think understanding the grouping of all these layers is logical and makes sense for a lot of people, but when you start putting this into practice and start animating a number of these layers, then it can turn into a little bit of an organizational nightmare. Let me show you some tips and some techniques that will help you when you're animating complex networks like I have here. Because I need to go in and animate a couple different things, right? I need to go in and animate the arms of my little robot. I need to animate the text coming on and off. So we have some specific timing issues in here that we need to tackle. So let's go into RoboBody and start looking at all of this stuff. And I'm going to just arbitrarily throw down some keyframes here. And let me return my rotation back to its original position. There we go. All right. Shoot, while we're at it, let's just very quickly go in and adjust the anchor point for all these layers to where I would like them to be, somewhere right around there. That way I can make a quick animation. Huzzah, there we go. And let me just parent all these bad boys together. Small arm's going to go to medium. Medium arm's going to go to big, and that's all we need to do. Okay, so check it out. I want my little big arm here. Let's pose this guy real fast. We'll do something like this. Awesome. There's the starting pose for my little character here. Over the course of, I don't know, maybe 10 frames. Let's make it 15 frames. I want it to rotate up. So let's get it to where I want it to go. Something perhaps like that. It looks like I'm off, so let me repose it. Something like that. There we go. Okay, so there's the animation, the first part of the animation for my little robot. Now, how do I get my robot arm to stay in that pose for a good second or so? Yeah. Yeah, keyframes come in pairs, right? All keyframes come in pairs. So if we need to define a movement, we need to have two sets of keyframes to define that portion of the movement. I have one movement established here from that keyframe to that keyframe, but I want to hold its position. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy that keyframe just by selecting it and going Edit, Copy. And now I can go forward in time and do Edit, Paste. And it'll paste that keyframe down. Okay. One other fast way of doing this, okay, check it out, is to click on this little diamond here. If you click on the diamond, it's automatically going to infuse a keyframe with the current value of that channel at the location of the playhead. It's a little bit dangerous. People often this is a place where people get in trouble from time to time. But if you know what you're doing and you're comfortable with it, definitely do it, man. It's awesome. So I can just hit keyframe, keyframe, and now from this keyframe to that keyframe, I've defined the next motion, which is kind of no motion, actually. It's just going to stand still, but it's going to stand still for the duration between that one and that one in here. All right. Let's flush out our third motion. Let's see. Let's put her right about in there. And now I think I want my little guy to rotate around. Let's do something really kind of fun. I'll have it go one full revolution, and then maybe yoink, something like that. I don't know, I'm ad-libbing it here. If we play the entire animation, let's check it out real fast. So this is one movement, start, stop. This is one movement, start, stop. And then this is another movement, start, stop. Okay? It stops, pauses, and then it goes into the second one. Okay. Now we have some timing that we need to establish for our text elements as well, and this is where that little tip comes in. We're working with nested composition. Your playhead is a dynamic element that's going to remember its current position in our timeline from comp to comp. Awesome. Okay. Because I want to have my little snowboarding guy pop in at precisely Well, right there. Okay, I need my snowboard to appear on screen, or the snowboarding text to appear on screen right at the location of my playhead. Well, check it out. If I go into, let's see, where is it? It's in RoboBody, excuse me. If I go into my text, notice that my playhead is on frame 15. If I double click on text and open it up, check it out. My playhead is still on frame 15. Okay, it didn't move its location.
And it seems like if I was on one of these subcomps and moved it, it didn't move anywhere else. So is it only based on the main composition? So like if I dragged this playhead and then I went to a different composition?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. If the comps are unrelated, if they're independent and they're not nested inside of each other.
Well, no, because I had the whole main robot one and I had these three nested comps in it. Did I get it wrong?
Maybe you did it wrong. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But see, if I even if I go to Pat's silly animation, yeah. So if I put my playhead at 3 seconds, if I go into text, check it out. My playhead is still at 3 seconds. Let's put it back to a second. And then Pat's silly animation is staying there. Yeah. Look again. Look again. The playhead should keep its position. Yeah, that would drive me crazy too. Yeah, that would drive me crazy. So the playhead is going. Well, one thing that could be the magnification of that timeline in comparison to the magnification. Maybe it just looked like it wrong, but it was actually in the current on that current time ruler. Yeah, looks can be deceiving sometimes. That may be it. If you're ever curious as to where the location of your playhead resides, definitely keep your eye set to this thing. This is your timecode reader. This saves your bacon if you're a numeric person, if you like to have things precisely at a very specific frame. This is going to tell you exactly what frame your playhead is currently residing on. Huh? Okay, so I'll keep that in mind. Let me go back to RoboBody, and I'm going to put my playhead right where I want it to go. Now I can go into the text composition and start establishing what I need to do for snowboarding. Because at this moment in time, this is where I need the opacity to turn on, and then I can just kind of back time a little bit and reduce its opacity. Okay. And now when I go back to my master comp, everything said pop on right where I want it to pop on. Okay, the playhead is going to remember its position from composition to composition. So keep the playhead in the forefront of your mind. It's there to help you. A lot of folks, they just tend to forget about the playhead, and they try to animate by brute force, right? No, use that playhead. It's designed to be an interactive marker for the frame that you're currently viewing inside of After Effects. Okay, kind of makes sense. Rock and roll. Questions? Let's take a break. Let's take a break. Okay. One final thing here, and then I'll let you guys start working on your homework in your lab for this week. Let me do this. I'm going to import in that this fractal noise soft, just so I have two layers to play around with here inside of After Effects. I want to show you a really neat thing. Okay, so for your lab assignment this week, you're going to continue to explore the application of track maps. And if you look very quickly at the example here, just navigate over to it. This is what I'm asking you guys to make. You have the Purple Flow video asset that I've given you in the resources section of the website, and then you're going to have the Cityscape video file. And your job is to create an animated transition that uses track maps. Okay, there are a number of different ways to do it. Let me play the sample so you guys can get an idea of what we're after. That's it. That's what we're after. Okay, all these little blocks are created from a whole series of shape layers in After Effects. Their animation and the application of the track map allows us to create a really cool animated opening, or the first part of a really neat animated opening. You're going to want to keep these files as you work on this assignment. We're going to continue to expand on this next week, so this is just part one. So we're not done with this yet, but it's a nice little project that allows us to play around with track mats. Now, one thing that I neglected to show you guys earlier was that track mats can work on a number of different layers. Okay. Now, hopefully, you know, I would implore you to do this with shape layers because they're all vector. Life is good when things are vector. Okay, awesome, rock and roll. So there's our shape layer. Of course, we can go in and animate this around, but what if you have a whole bunch of these shape layers? Okay, you can certainly have a whole bunch of paths within a shape layer, but what if you have a whole bunch of shape layers themselves? Okay, what if you didn't craft your scene with paths inside of a shape layer and you just have 4 shape layers? Well, check it out. The composition system also works with track mats. I want to make a pre-comp from all of these shape layers. So layer, pre-compose, so just throw it in there. There it is, awesome. And now I can pre-comp it. So I can pre-comp and continue to use the alpha information of a pre-comp in here. Ta-da! Okay. Yeah. It didn't work. Did you try it like this? Yeah, pre-comp it. Because remember, track mats.
Can you open the pre-comp now?
Absolutely. So you can open the pre-comp. You can continue to adjust these. And if I was to go back to back here, you can see that it updates. Absolutely. Okay. Remember, when you're working with track mats, it's a relationship that's only made between 2 different layers inside of After Effects. Okay. You get the cookie and the cookie cutter. So it's a relationship between 2. I have 4 different shapes that I want to use as the starting point for my transition here, my animated transition. So grouping them, pre-composing them, allows me to make that relationship between the 2 layers. Okay, great little trick. Great little trick. Okay, so go crazy with it. Have fun with the animation for your lab. It will be a quick one. This is not a heavy lab assignment. I tend to hit you hard, and then I kind of pull it back a little bit. Okay, so I know the last couple lab assignments have been really heavy. RoboBody was a heavy lab assignment, so I'm kind of pulling back a little bit to give you guys an opportunity to breathe and relax and catch up if you're behind.
Exactly as possible, or are we trying to kind of come up with maybe we could throw in our own little...
Throw in your own thing.
Oh, I use circles.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that.
We don't have to do that.
Yeah. What? What? An effect? Use track mats. I want you to use track mats, but you can definitely use stars if you wanted to, or circles, Oh, you crashed. Yeah. Well, the beach ball doesn't necessarily mean that it's a crash. Okay? It means that it's thinking. And there it is. It's back. Okay? So, you get lucky. Give it a second. Give it a second. Let it think. Stop clicking. Whenever I get a beach ball, that's my indication that I need to stop clicking. Okay? And just let it think and process and figure out what it's trying to finish. Okay? When you're done with this, and this is something that I picked up on recently in CC. When you're done, obviously you're going to render this. So let's add it to the render queue. And let's go into, okay. So remember, when you're rendering these, I want you to render them using the H.264 format. And in earlier versions of After Effects, you can just go right in here, and there was a lovely little preset. It said MP4, H.264. That's gone. That's gone now in CC. We're still going to use the QuickTime format, but you have to go over to the Format Options, which is going to allow us to change the video codec, which is this section right here, and then from this crazy long laundry list, you can get H.264, okay? I've noticed that a couple of you guys have uploaded your videos to, uploaded your homework and your lab assignments, not using this H.264 codec. Please, please use this. It's good for you, it's good for me, because now it's a file size that is significantly smaller than an uncompressed QuickTime movie using the animation codec, okay? The H.264 codec is great. It preserves the image quality, but also makes it a very manageable file size. It's a great distribution codec for handing your files in. I wouldn't recommend it for anything else, but for final things, this is perfect for what we're doing in this class, okay? So please, please, please make sure you go through and you change that, okay? This small little reminder getting to this menu, it's a little bit buried. So this is just I clicked on the word lossless, and under Format Options right here, just make sure that the video codec is set to H.264 and we're good to go, okay? We're good to go, all right. Also, if you're not rendering stuff with audio, okay, and this week there is no audio for you to render, just make sure the audio output is on, okay? This is another big difference in CC in comparison to CS6. I know Arthur's on CS6. It's defaulted to off in every version, in every version except CC, which is crazy. It's one of those things that people in the motion graphics world is like, can't you just default this to on? Why does it always have to be off? Now they've defaulted it to auto, which is better, I suppose.
But if you have no video or no audio, still leave it on?
It doesn't make a difference. Yeah. If there's no audio, then it's not going to export any audio associated with the file. Yep. Questions on that? Everyone comfortable? All right. All right. So we got about an hour left in class. Let's use the remaining time left, and you can knock out your lab assignment, knock out your homework, and get out of here. Okay? Sound good? Let's get to work.